What's good, guys? I've been training for about 10 years now, played college sports. I've been on a bodybuilding arc, strength training arc, athleticism, and now I kind of combine it all into one. I've tried all different types of training, made all different types of mistakes. In this video, I want to condense everything into a few actionable items that I would have told my younger self if I had the ability to. It's currently super snowy here in Pennsylvania, so much so that the gyms they didn't open until later in the day. So we're gonna head over, hit some legs, and I'll walk you guys through some pointers as the video goes on. First and foremost, you need to have fuel before your workout, and the proper kind. When I was younger, I might have a protein bar, I might eat a fucking Big Mac, but the truth is you need to have carbs within a certain window before you train. The closer to your workout you're gonna eat carbs, the lighter they need to be. So if you're about to work out in 30, 45 minutes, like I am now, I had a banana, rice cake, honey, and a little bit of peanut butter, but super easily digestible. Not having like oats within 30 minutes of training. I used to do that and it would sit in my stomach like a rock and negatively impact my session. Nowadays, I'll eat a banana, have some rice cakes, or even some sweet potato within like an hour of my workout, and it just makes a huge difference. You need to be fueled, you need to be able to give all you got in those sessions. You don't wanna feel drained halfway through. I've definitely been there before. And then you also get a sick pump, and who does not want a sick pump? So fuel up, also hydrate as well. And I'll see you guys at the gym. Hopefully these headphones aren't dogging the audio, but I just pulled up to the gym. It's super important to get a thorough warm up. I'll walk you guys through it, but that caffeine's got my stomach moving. So I gotta take a pre-workout dookie, and I'll see you guys for the warm up. So the whole goal of the warm up is activation. For this, I love to do banded isometrics, not just for the quads or the hamstrings, but also the flexors, abductors, adductors, the whole nine. Without a thorough warm-up, setting yourself up for failure for that session, and also putting yourself at a greater risk of injury in the long term. Some people never deliberately train their hip flexors, so if you include them in your warm-up each leg day, it's a good way to get compound movements on a typically under-trained muscle group. After thorough activation, it's one thing to have blood in your muscles. It's another thing to wake up your central nervous system to get prepared to move heavy weight. So we're gonna do a nervous system primer with some pogos. I'll show you guys here in a sec. As you begin to warm up, it's super common for people to just move it slowly and kind of half-ass it, but watch the way I move just the bar. I'm moving it as if I have my max weight on there. This intention will make the biggest difference in your warm-ups. I totally forgot to touch on it. Every single session, upper or lower, always starts with a compound to get the whole system going and engage as many of your muscles as possible. Also gets the core firing. It's just a great way to set the tone for the whole session, because then you can easily progress into isolation work after you've already exhausted the major muscle groups. You certainly don't have to do Zerchers. I just found it's a great way to get my entire core engaged, more so than a back squat, because it requires a lot more bracing from my experience. It's just a new movement I've been enjoying. You can totally start with back squat, front squat, power clean, etc. That top set took a lot out of me. When you're stretching out your sets and reps, it totally depends on your goals. For me, I'm gonna do probably just 3 sets of a heavy single, go for a double if I can with 315. But this is also a perfect segue into single leg movements, because I'm just gonna do Zercher single leg reverse lunges, and I'll show you guys here in a sec. If you saw that video I made on training, I like to go for my primary compound into a sub compound. So another compound movement that's still targeting like a specific muscle group without completely isolating it. So an RDL is a great way to do like a sub compound for your hamstrings. You're still engaging a bunch of other muscle groups, but the primary focus is your hamstrings, depending on how you do it. So that's kind of my philosophy. I have to do my primary. I hit each muscle group in whatever I'm hitting that day, today legs, with those secondary compounds. So with this reverse lunge, in terms of secondary compounds, you're kind of knocking out 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm hitting my quads, also getting a good glute targeting in there as well. More importantly, I like to use this as a segue into single leg work, because after my compound, single leg work is predominantly what I like to focus on. I've had injuries in the past, I've had imbalances, so it's super important that I eliminate those and make sure my legs are on the same page rather than allowing one to compensate for the other, doing only bilateral movements. Before I get into single leg work, a lot of you guys ask me how I incorporate plyos and do contrast training. So I'll show you guys an example of a secondary compound. I'm gonna do kettlebell swings, which primarily for like your hips and a bit of your hamstrings with the hinging motion. And I'll superset it with knee jumps. The key with contrast training is pairing biomechanically similar movements. A kettlebell swing is a lot of force from the hips. A knee jump eliminates the lower legs from the jumping, so it's generating power from the hips. Execute your lift, give yourself about a minute of rest, get into the plyos. I'll show you guys here. The beauty about contrast training is that you're forcing your body to execute that movement with weight. And then when you go to weightless, it's almost like you're supercharging your body. It's called muscle potentiation, so that when you use the weight, you recruit more muscle fibers. And then when you go weightless, your whole system's already recruited, your nervous system's amped up. So you basically just jump higher than you normally would have, and you get more out of the movement. You have to excuse my bro explanation. I'm trying to keep it simple and I'm kind of winded. But so far, fuel, thorough warm up, lead with a compound to get the whole system online, then move into your secondary compounds. I just showed you a quick example of contrast training for the guys if that want to practice the athletic side of things with plyometrics. That's a great way that I execute it. You can always do plyometrics on their own. I like incorporating contrast training. I try to do it on their own, it's just my preference, and I'd recommend it for y'all as well. So now we can get into some more single leg stuff, more bulletproofing, mobility kind of stuff now that the power and explosion's out of the way. In terms of sets and reps, for the kettlebell swings, I did about 4 sets of 10. For the lifting portion of the contrast, you can be more generous with it. For the plyometric portion of the contrast, you want fewer quality reps with about a minute of rest time in between the weighted versus the plyo. Here we got the ATG split squat. It's working multiple muscle groups, but again, primarily the quad and the hip flexor. And that's movements I like to lean towards rather than isolation, just to make sure the full system is working in unison. Rather than just isolating on a machine, it's like, okay, I'll primarily focus on the quad and the hip flexor while incorporating ankle and range of mobility, all that stuff. So I'll show you guys here. These will both unlock and bulletproof your knees and your hip flexors because you're getting in such a deep end range of flexion for your knees and then extension of your hip flexors. So it's like a crazy hip flexor stretch. You're developing strength under that stretch while also unlocking that super deep knee flexion, strengthening the connective tissue in there as well. So this is a great one if you have knee pain, if you have hip flexor pain, but do not start on the ground with weight. Start with no weight with your front foot elevated. So in terms of secondary compounds, we've checked off the glutes and the hips, we've checked off the quads and the hip flexors. Now we got to focus more on the hamstrings and then the lower leg. I know I mentioned I'm mostly doing single leg work now, but there's not a better bulletproofing movement for your hamstrings than Nordics, in my opinion. So we're gonna do some Nordics and then we're gonna do eccentric Nordics, just fighting on the way down for 5 seconds, probably 3 sets of 5. This will absolutely toast your hamstrings. And yeah. For the lower leg, we're doing some spring ankle holds to strengthen calf, soleus, and the foot ankle complex as a whole, while also having that knee in the knee over toe position, holding ISO. I get a bit of a quad shake there. And then the front half of the lower leg, the tibs, just do some tib raises for that. So all in all, I think the biggest takeaway is lead with a compound. And after that, don't just hit the rest of your muscles with isolation work. Have it work in unison. The spring ankle holds bulletproof the foot and ankle complex while also involving the knee, because in real life and in sports, in a functional situation, not just for posing or whatever, your whole body's gonna be used. It's not gonna be exclusively your calf. That's why I'm a big proponent of doing these secondary compounds. I use the term loosely, instead of just doing strictly isolation machine work. It's also your goal. If you're trying to be a bodybuilder, I probably wouldn't train like this. But I'm training for functionality, athleticism, mobility, and quality of life. One thing that's key to know is you don't have to get it all finished in one session. If you're thinking, why didn't you do more explosive work or more strength work or more single leg work? I train legs like 3 times a week. So it's all about just breaking it up into digestible chunks in a structured manner, but you don't have to hit a home run every single leg session. I'll leave here knowing that I did my strength and power work, did some contrast training, then I worked on my mobility and bulletproof in the end ranges. That to me is a complete session. And I'll be back here another 2 times this week for more explosive work, more single leg work, etc. Forgot to cover the sets and reps for the spring ankle hold and tib raises. I like to do about 3 sets of 30-second holds for the spring ankles and then 3 sets of 10 reps for the tib raises. Nothing too crazy. Head to the sauna. The sauna is a huge leverage for recovery because it improves overall blood flow, which just gets the tissue repair going. It releases heat shock proteins to just help the repair process. And it also shifts you into that parasympathetic nervous system. Because after you work out, believe it or not, you get a huge cortisol spike. So you can alleviate that with proper nutrition afterward, but sauna is a great way to do it as well. So definitely leverage that. It's funny how we can leverage extreme heat and extreme cold because a cold plunge is amazing, has a great hormonal response, release growth hormone, as well as just lower overall inflammation. So I always leverage the sauna. I do cold plunge in the morning, but definitely sauna always after I work out. Gang, that's the whole kit and caboodle. Did 30 minutes in the sauna, showered up. Literally the walk from the gym to the car, my hair is like frozen. It's so cold out. After you've fueled before your workout, had a thorough warm up, led with a compound, attacked your other muscle groups with the secondary compounds, you've incorporated strength in those end ranges, you've incorporated contrast training, some isometrics for bulletproofing work, attacked the recovery portion with the sauna. The only thing left is to refuel your body with some adequate protein and carbs. I always lean towards more animal-based proteins, and for carbs like sweet potato and fruits, but I made a whole video on diet, so if there's any confusion there, go check that out. Hopefully this video was helpful for you guys, give you some more insight on how to structure and attack like your leg day, for example. If it'll be helpful for me to go over an upper body day and how I structure and attack that, let me know, or even a leg day with a different focus, maybe more explosive. Just let me know in the comments. Definitely check out my Instagram for more content like this. Like and subscribe. Peace and love.